We are starting with AEW Revolution, and for the Tornado Tag match, Sting's entrance was preceded by an excellent video of the Icon watching the highlights of his iconic career from an empty movie theater. Sting's sons, representing two different eras of his career, accompanied him and even got involved early on, but the focus on the match never left the Icon. Sting concluded his epic career in a violent main event that saw himself and Darby Allin retain the AEW World Tag Team titles against Matthew and Nicholas Jackson. Tables, ladders, and chairs added to the danger, but it was the introduction of panes of glass that upped the ante and the violence, which we're sure some would argue was unnecessary. Sting took a big suplex bump off the stage and threw a table on the ground below, and later on, he endured a powerbomb off of a ladder and through a table. The Icon was throwing caution to the wind for his final hurrah, and after Allin took a sickeningly stupid bump off a ladder through a pane of glass, Sting took a bump of his own moments later. Sting came across as a world beater, overcoming everything the Bucks threw at him before securing the win with the Scorpion Deathlock, the right call as the crowd in Greensboro made clear. Sting was triumphant and able to soak in the adulation and celebrate an unbeaten AEW record, and was able to take one last moment in the spotlight. It's fitting that one of wrestling's most selfless stars took the opportunity after the match to thank the fans and Allin, although he was cut off mid-speech due to timing constraints. That's an issue for another time, as is the fate of the AEW World Tag titles, but for now, the finale of Sting's career was an unforgettable moment that delivered in spades. Post-show, Sting called his sons into the ring and had Tony Khan join them, and Khan was grateful for the fans honoring Sting at what he called the greatest wrestling pay-per-view of all time. Darby Allin extended his thanks to everyone before saying his next big visit is to the hospital, and Sting wanted an update on the number of stitches. Sting invited Tony Schiavone to the ring to deliver one last "It's Sting!" and the entire AEW roster and crew gathered on stage to applaud Sting to a chant of "Thank you, Sting." This was an epic, fitting way for Sting's career to end, and what was your favorite moment from the Icon's career? Let us know below. At Revolution, Hangman Page failed to capture the AEW World title, and it may be some time before we see the Cowboy next in action. Fightful Select reports that leading up to the match, the word backstage was that he'd be taking time off, with a break possibly being set up by him attacking referees at Revolution. Page could be suspended for this, giving him the time off he so desires, and we'll have to see when we see him next in AEW. In the AEW World Championship match, Swerve Strickland was the overwhelming fan favorite, and regardless of the result, came across as a world champion in waiting. The hatred between Swerve and Hangman Page superseded the AEW World title, or at least that's what the finish of this title match with Samoa Joe would suggest. The action-packed bout saw the ongoing rivalry between Swerve and Page on full display, with Swerve's obsession with beating Page leading him to not follow up on covering Joe. Instead, Swerve hit the house call to the back of Page but only scored a 2 count, establishing the narrative that the pair were too focused on each other and not the gold. During the match, Hangman obliterated referee Bryce Remsburg, ensuring he would not count the fall that would have delivered Strickland the championship. The finish saw Joe trap Page in the Coquina clutch, and it was the Cowboy who tapped out mere moments before Strickland could break the hold. Commentary insinuated that Page's hatred for Swerve made him choose to tap out just to ensure that his nemesis couldn't win the title, sinking his own chances in the process. It's certainly quite the claim from commentary, as the goal of a world title match should always be to win the title that, in theory, competitors work their entire careers in search of. The notion that somebody would voluntarily tap out to stick it to someone else is asinine, and would have perhaps worked in a match where AEW's richest prize wasn't up for grabs. Sure, there's a story at play between Strickland and Page that has seen them do things the likes of which we have never seen before, with their disdain for each other no secret. That doesn't excuse diminishing the value of AEW's top prize, and this match was good, but was hampered by the massive creative misstep in the closing moments. For the second consecutive AEW pay-per-view, Eddie Kingston and Bryan Danielson tore the house down with an intensely physical war of attrition with plenty at stake. Kingston's exploder suplex in honor of Jun Akiyama was a nice touch, especially after he dedicated the bout to his idol, whom Danielson had assaulted in the lead-in to this match. The story here was Kingston's grit and resiliency and the mounting frustration it caused in Danielson as both competitors threw everything they had at each other. That was before a left-handed comeback from the Continental Crown Champion that rocked Danielson, and a lariat that countered a Busaiku knee and a powerbomb to end the match. Kingston retained the Continental crown by overcoming an injured right hand, damaged during a missed chop that struck the ring post. This was a fantastic match with a great story and a performance from Kingston that aspiring wrestlers should study. He sold the right hand, never using it unless absolutely necessary. That includes throughout the match and even after, insisting Danielson raise the left one after the heel finally showed him respect via handshake. This was an excellent match, hardly a surprise given the talents involved, and has to be an early contender for AEW's Match of the Year. The opening contest of AEW Revolution saw Christian Cage use his in-ring psychology to retain the TNT Championship against Daniel Garcia. Cage manipulated his way to an advantage, with Killswitch interfering at one point on Cage's behalf to cut off a comeback by Garcia, but a revenge-seeking Matt Menard arrived to fight Killswitch off. Another example of Cage's tactics saw him fake a foot injury before suckering the challenger in with a poke to the eye, allowing the veteran to seize control of the bout. On commentary, Excalibur tied Garcia's focus on the ankle of Cage to his time in the Jericho Appreciation Society with Jake Hager, who's known for his use of the ankle lock. What no one accounted for was Nick Wayne's presence at ringside as the 19-year-old rocked Garcia, allowing Cage to deliver the unprettier and secure the victory. This was quality in-ring work, another highlight reel from Garcia, and smart booking that protected the challenger in defeat helped make this a big thumbs up to start the show. Now Vince McMahon is facing some serious controversy and claims of sexual abuse by Janelle Grant, who claims she was trafficked to other men within WWE. Grant's lawsuit has once again raised concern about WWE's treatment of women and has brought additional names into the spotlight, including the late Ashley Massaro. After Massaro's death in 2019, an affidavit penned by the WWE diva revealed that she was drugged and sexually assaulted by a US military member during a WWE tour in Kuwait. Massaro later asserted that WWE and McMahon specifically instructed her to keep quiet in order to protect their standing with the US military. After the affidavit became public, WWE issued a response saying they were sad about her passing, but that neither WWE nor McMahon were informed of the alleged assault. Now new details have come to light, as Post Wrestling reports that the Air Force Office of Special Investigations launched an investigation into the matter on May 24, 2019. NCIS took over the case on June 28th, and after conducting multiple interviews, they were unable to locate the reported crime scene, and the case was closed on January 27, 2020. Revelations from the investigation include a statement from K&L Gates, the law firm of Jerry McDevitt, who until very recently represented WWE in all legal matters. On August 26, 2019, the firm revealed that Ashley Massaro insisted on participating in a photo shoot after the alleged assault, and the photos were dated July 3, 2006. It's believed the shoot occurred the day after the alleged assault, which would put the date of the attack as July 2nd, and there is confusion about the location of the alleged attack. It was initially thought that the attack happened at the Ali Al Salan Air Base, but Massaro's medical records showed that she was treated at Camp Patriot, Aerial Port of Demarcation, Troop Medical Clinic. This is located 90 minutes away from the base, raising questions as to what exactly happened and where it happened. Interviews conducted during the investigation yielded little information, with those questioned often not having a memory of the tour or of Massaro's allegations. A physician assistant interviewed on June 25, 2019 did say, though, that he recalled being asked to see Massaro on Sunday following complaints of abdomen and pelvic pain. The physician assistant was called into Camp Patriot to see Massaro, accompanied by a male civilian acting strangely, and Massaro appeared drowsy but lucid during questioning. The assistant acknowledged the questionable act of conducting a pelvic exam on Massaro despite concerns about her state, and the examination was later interrupted. There was banging on the door during the exam, as mentioned in the affidavit, with conflicting reports about the response to this interruption. Massaro reportedly seemed nonchalant to the banging and stated everything was fine, and the manager stopped knocking without further inquiry. In the interview, the physician assistant said he didn't administer any drugs to Ashley and observed no signs of distress during the examination, discounting indications of assault. Efforts were made by NCIS to interview the officer in charge of the clinic where Massaro was treated, who initially resisted an interview without a subpoena. Though not considered a suspect, the officer was presented with a list of questions, but declined to provide any further information 5 days later. Despite the investigation closing on January 27, 2020, the findings of this matter were only made public this past Friday, and we hope that one day the truth will be known as to what happened. Over the past couple of years, we've seen some notable names leave AEW, the biggest of which being the likes of CM Punk, Jade Cargill, and Cody Rhodes, all of whom have since joined WWE. Recently, it was rumored that Ricky Starks had become a free agent with his contract coming to an end, but it turns out that isn't the case at all. Sources within AEW told Fightful Select that Starks' contract is still active, and individuals close to Starks have also verified that his deal with AEW has not yet expired. Despite not appearing on AEW since losing the AEW tag team titles alongside Big Bill, there has been no official explanation as to why he's not been on TV in weeks. WWE will be disappointed to learn that the rumors are false, as in September 2023, it was reported that WWE had high interest in signing him when the time is right. Could Ricky Starks one day join WWE? It's certainly possible, but with his AEW deal still alive and well, a jump to WWE and reunion with his friend Cody Rhodes won't be happening anytime soon. Back to Revolution, and in the home of some of the greatest tag team matches from Jim Crockett Promotions, the Blackpool Combat Club bested FTR in yet another superb classic. Moxley and Castagnoli wore Road Warriors-esque shoulder pads to the ring, paying tribute to one of the great teams to compete in the hallowed grounds of the Greensboro Coliseum. The match started slow, with both teams feeling each other out amidst an audience still recovering from the night's action to this point, but it wasn't long until business picked up. Dax Harwood caught his head on the ring post or stairs, busting him open and leading to the proverbial crimson mask, and would bleed buckets for the rest of the encounter. The drama was at a high following some quality near falls, and the crowd were behind the idea of FTR scoring the victory in their hometown. The alertness of the BCC, however, allowed them to withstand what FTR had, with Castagnoli countering a shatter machine with a big swing, while Moxley downed Cash with a cutter in a cool spot. Ultimately, it was the BCC who got the win with stereo submissions, and after the match, much was made of Mox and Claudio being individuals in a group. This win helped solidify the pairing as a team, and it seems a future as a tag team isn't out of the question, nor is a championship opportunity. If that's the case, the outcome had a purpose. Still, it felt like a misstep given FTR was in their home state, in an arena that the teams they molded themselves after made famous. Will Ospreay made a successful in-ring debut as a full-time AEW wrestler, defeating fellow Don Callis family member Konosuke Takeshita in another Match of the Year candidate. This was hellishly physical with awe-inspiring sequences, and the story thread of the two allies testing each other captivated the audience, who delivered a "Fight Forever" chant. None of that was unexpected, as Ospreay is exceptional and Takeshita is one of the brightest young stars in pro wrestling, so a banger of a match was never out of the question. The result was a great way to kick off the New Japan Exports run with AEW, and with All In coming down the line, one has to expect big things for the Essex-born Ospreay. Post-match, ROH World TV champ Kyle Fletcher appeared and after a brief stare-down, embraced his United Empire teammate. Excalibur announced the pair will clash on Dynamite in what will be the second consecutive show to have Don Callis family members compete, suggesting Callis may be up to no good. Since the summer of last year, AEW has hosted Collision on Saturdays, but for March 23rd, the weekly episode of AEW Collision will be preempted. This will happen due to the NCAA basketball tournament, which could be seen very often in the next few weeks, so this likely won't be the last time we see AEW Collision preempted. AEW Collision has had an interesting time as of late, with the hype surrounding the show cooling off significantly in 2024, while AEW Dynamite has been increasing in popularity. Being preempted for the March 23rd show is the last thing AEW Collision or Tony Khan needs, but with other big sporting events coming up, it may become more regular for the Saturday show. For wrestling fans, there are few things better than getting the chance to meet some of the wrestlers you see on TV, and this past weekend, fans in the UK were given the chance to do exactly that. The For the Love of Wrestling convention in Manchester, England saw 2 days of wrestling excitement, with merchandise stalls around the massive venue and talks throughout the event. The event featured the likes of Rikishi, Trish Stratus, Scott Steiner, Maria Kanellis, Rhino, Nick Nemeth, and Gangrel, as well as released WWE names like Elijah, Shelton Benjamin, and Matt Riddle. One of our very own team was able to attend the event and said they had a blast over the 2 days, and noted that Riddle had quite the stank of weed around him throughout the weekend. Our source added that the queue to meet Trish Stratus was always a long one, with fans getting their chance to share their gratitude and ask the 7-time women's champion questions. We're sure many asked about a possible return to the ring, and during the Gorilla Position podcast, Trish said that ultimately she can't book herself into WWE's plans. With that said, Trish did say she'd love to have another match in her native Toronto, Canada, which will be the host city for this year's Money in the Bank premium live event. Speaking about possible opponents, Trish discussed having unfinished business with Zoe Stark, but also named Rhea Ripley, saying she loves to play up the big versus small dynamic in matches. As one of the biggest names in women's wrestling, we're sure WWE would be open to welcoming Trish back, and that could very well happen later this year. In the Scramble match, Chris Jericho, Hook, Wardlow, Brian Cage, Magnus, Powerhouse Hobbs, Dante Martin, and Lance Archer gave their all in pursuit of a title shot. The match was a late addition as the Meat Madness match has been put on ice for now due to injuries, and while it was a different cast of characters, it was the same outcome. On the heels of a bombshell promo, Wardlow channeled his sudden momentum into a hard-fought victory, obliterating Martin with a powerbomb for the win. The match was essentially a collection of spots and sequences with no connective thread to speak of, though that's not necessarily a bad thing for a match that came together so late. Jericho and Magnus landed stereo lion salts on Archer in a cool spot, and Hook delivered a Randy Savage-esque top rope double axe handle, as Taz alluded to on commentary. With that said, the crowd struggled to invest in it the way they did the other matches on the card, but they did react favorably to some of the action throughout. Wardlow winning was the right call because a loss here would have rendered that aforementioned promo irrelevant, and he now has an AEW World title opportunity. It'll be interesting to see if Adam Cole does, as he suggested he would in his inaugural promo as the leader of Undisputed Kingdom, and makes the big man hand it over to him. The Undisputed Kingdom secured gold at Revolution, with Roderick Strong winning the international title from Orange Cassidy, and Kyle O'Reilly appeared post-match. In his first appearance in well over a year, O'Reilly hugged his friend but stopped short of joining the faction, instead whispering something in Strong's ear in an interesting development. For the AEW Women's World title match, Toni Storm promised that Deonna Purrazzo would get the old her and more, and with the help of Mariah May, she kept her word. May arrived dressed like her idol from a year or so ago, but the match had the unenviable task of following 3.5 hours of action in front of a crowd that was getting increasingly tired. The placement on the card did the match a disservice, and Storm got the win with a pile driver on the Virtuosa following a distraction by Luther. During last October's AEW Wrestle Dream, Rey Fenix was escorted backstage due to an old injury, and he hasn't wrestled since losing the international title later that same month. During a recent House of Glory event, though, Fenix's brother Penta El Cerro Miedo issued a challenge to Fenix for the promotion's upcoming Cinco de Mayo event on May 5th. Given that Penta made this challenge, it certainly seems like Fenix will be cleared in time, and we're looking forward to seeing the two face off in just over 2 months' time. On the Revolution kickoff show, the Bang Bang Scissor Gang defeated Jeff Jarrett, Jay Lethal, Satnam Singh, Private Party, and Willie Mack in a messy match. It helped that the crowd were hot and ready for some wrestling, but one has to feel for Jay White, who was headlining an AEW pay-per-view just a few months ago. The kickoff show also saw Willow Nightingale and Chris Statlander defeat Julia Hart and Sky Blue, with Nightingale getting the win on Hart, possibly setting herself up for a TBS title match.